Here we have the Gateway Arch in St. Louis, Missouri. I love this, and it's related to my necklace. Hi, welcome to Square Ruth. That's my nickname and that's my show. Today is the third part, the best part, of Davincify your brain. How to make your brain work so that it can do math and art. And I chose this to start off with because the architect said, I'm going to make this last for thousands of years. So I'm going to take the shape of a hanging chain, which is called a catenary. A catenary is the equation for the curve of a hanging chain. If you turn it upside down, you get my necklace shape. And this will last for many, many hundreds of years because it's mathematically stable. Today, you're going to learn how to overcome math anxiety or how to help someone else overcome math anxiety. A lot of people fear math. For people who fear math, they call it mental abuse to humans, M-A-T-H. They would rather put their hand on a hot stove than do math. It's a phobia just like snakes or heights or speaking in front of a group. Anything you could be afraid, spiders. And if you have a phobia, you understand how math anxiety could really hurt someone. Now, if you are interested in improving how you do math, just recognize you probably do a lot of math already. Just setting up a kitchen if you move into a new place, or understanding golf rules or football rules or bridge rules or all kinds of different rules of games, or wrapping gifts. I have a little list here. Assembling toys and furniture that come packed in a box with a little instruction sheet, solving mysteries. These are all things that require you to pay very close attention to detail and follow a very specific rule for what has to be. Now, let's see how you're going to Davincify your brain. But it's not all about your brain. Your emotions play a huge role. A lot of people don't realize that. When someone is stuck on a math problem, it's not a logical situation for them. It's an emotional situation. The feeling of going blank, especially if people are watching you, especially if you're in a classroom or you're doing math in front of somebody, you go blank. The emotions flood your brain, and no math is going to go on up there until you get very calm. You do deep breathing. You get into the present moment. But now there is a connection between stress and achievement. Wait till you see how this is. All right, we're going to work on this trusty iPad. You're going to have a y-axis and an x-axis, and here's the arch. This axis is for stress. This is for achievement. Now here's how the connection works. The further out in this direction, the further out in this direction you go, the more stress you have, and the higher up here, the better you do. All right, so let's see how this works. If you have almost no stress, you don't do very well. You're a little too mellowed out. You don't push yourself. A little more stress. You push yourself more, you achieve more. There's a point at which, just before you're starting to take a turn for the worse and achieve less, there's a sweet spot. And you need to monitor yourself. You want to keep some stress. It gives you adrenaline. It gives you excitement. It gives you the energy to keep going. You don't want to mellow out too much, and you don't want to be too far over, like down here, where you're starting to really have a hard time. So monitor yourself. Stay in the sweet spot. Stay in the present moment. If you feel your emotions are heading too far off to the far end over here, back off. Do some deep breathing. Think about wonderful, peaceful things, and then go back and do the math. Oh, there's going to be some really good math today. You're going to be glad you tuned into this. All right, I'm going to erase this. We're going to do some math that you will find very useful. But if you recall, in the previous 2 episodes, there was something called sfumato, about things being mysterious. Like, for example, see this? This is very mysterious. There's no triangle on this board. It's just pieces of circles. More about this later. Just want to get your brain in the mood of Da Vinci, who said, mysterious things make you think better. So go for things that tantalize your brain and then go back to work. All right, when you're doing math rules, and we're away from art, where you just look at the object and draw it. Now there will be rules, and you have to really pay attention to detail. Math is really full of details. You can't relax and just look around and let your brain float where it's going to float. You have to focus on details. And if you're not that kind of person, well, there are probably times in your life when you are. You may be very careful about how you do certain jobs, how you arrange your sock drawer, how you write, how you plan your outfits, all different things in your life. Find something where you pay attention to details, because that means you have it in you to be a detail-oriented person. So turn that on for doing math. Now, we're going to see things and notice things. What you saw over here, you may think you saw a triangle, but you didn't. Your brain created a triangle here. We see with our brain, not with our eyes. Our eyes just let in light. And even on this side of my handy-dandy clipboard, there's no square in the middle. These are just pieces of circles. Your brain is putting a square there. But now you need to notice, because I'm going to show you some useful math, and you're going to have to notice the details. Now, what is noticing? I don't mean just vaguely noticing. I mean, if you're having some math shown to you, your eye has to look, and it has to connect with your brain and fit with whatever else is in your brain. You have to find a way to make it fit. And you notice things. All right, the first thing, a very useful skill, is tipping in a restaurant. How do you leave a tip in a restaurant? Now, if you are a teacher or a parent and you show a young person this, oh, they feel like $1 million that they know how to figure a tip. And if you yourself want to know a much easier way to leave a tip, so you don't say to the person, oh, someone else figured the tip, I'm in no mood. Really, you don't feel like you could do it. But here's how you do this. All right, let's say that you have the restaurant bill as $47.30. The rule is double the tens. Double the tens. Now notice, that's the rule. You got to find out where are the tens. Ooh. And you double it. The tip is $8. So you would add the 8 onto the 47, leave them $55 and walk away. Or if you're a little kid, you say, hey, Dad, I know what the tip is. It's $8. And the dad will say, how did you do that? And just train the child to say, it's just because I'm so smart, Dad. So that's the tipping. Now, what if it is $253.87? It's a bunch of people going out to celebrate. That's 25 tens. That's going to be a $50 tip. So that would come to like $300. You would leave that on the table, or to the waitress rather. 25 tens. You don't just take the 5 and double the 5. You have to take all of this as the tens. The only time this does not work is if it comes to something under $30. All right, if you have a $21.34 check, 2 times 2 is 4. Whoops. Well, you could leave a $4 tip. But if you have $18.17, 2 times 1, you would leave just $2. You'd probably want to leave more. Under $30, sometimes the tip comes out a little low. But for $30 and up, just double the tens. That is a very useful thing to know. Next, discount. I just got a nice coupon for Kohl's for 30%. Okay, then, let's say I want to buy a $60 pair of pants, 30% off. Well, here's the trick. You don't take 30%, you take 70%. Subtract from 100. If it's 30% off, 70% is what you will pay. So then you say, well, then what? All you need is the first digits. You take the 6 times the 7, and it's $42. Those pants will cost you $42. All you need is the first digits, and it works. The thing is subtracting from 100, because if that 30% is off, you're going to pay 70%. This is a very handy thing to know. Let's see what happens if it's an $800 TV. You know what's so nice about this? If you missed what I just said, you could back up the recording and play it over. Ah, that's such a neat thing. All right, an $800 TV, and let's say it's going to be 40% off at Best Buy. All right, instead of the 40%, you're going to think of 60%. You subtract from 100, you're going to pay 60%. And all you look at is the 6 and the 8. Now, if you don't know your times tables, I am not going to yell at you. I'm just going to say, take out your calculator and it's on your cell phone, just do 6 times 8. 6 times 8, well, you'd say 48, but you have to add a 0 because it's in the hundreds. And you kind of know that if the TV is $800, you're not going to pay $48 for it. You add, I call it a common sense 0. And you're going to pay $480 for that TV. That's a good method. And so, oh, I should spell discount right. This you can do in your head. And you can knock people's socks off by doing it in your head. As long as you know your tables, you just got 6 times 8. And make sure you subtract from 100 first. Really, this is so handy. And people will say, how did you do that? It wows people, especially the ones that really don't know about the subtract from 100. They do a big song and dance to figure discount, but not you. Okay, now, you notice these are rules. In fact, I use a different tone of voice from when I was teaching art in parts 1 and part 2. When you're doing art, you just look. You just look at what you're working on. When you are doing art, like if you recall, I was teaching you how to look at your hand to draw it. And by looking, and looking for that alphabet of drawing, which I'll mention shortly, you move your pencil point. But if you're taking some numbers like those Fibonacci numbers, remember 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and so forth, and I tell you 3 to 5 is the golden ratio. These are anytime you take 2 adjacent ones next to each other and put it as a fraction, you will get roughly 0.6. You can't just look at the 3 and the 5 and get a 6. You have to turn something else on in your brain that says, all right, there's a rule. The rule has to control me. You don't do that for art. You don't say to yourself, well, how are you supposed to draw your hand in this wacky position? You don't. You give up control to the object, and that teaches you how to draw itself. Anybody can draw. Anybody can draw anything. It's how you see and how you give up control and let it move your pencil point. But when you're doing math, there's a rule. How to change 3/5 to 0.6. And if you don't know that rule, well, you take out your handy dandy cell phone and put in how to change a fraction to a decimal, and you realize it's division. This bar is a division sign, and that's how you get a decimal from a fraction. There's a rule. That makes math so nice. It makes you feel like you can relax. You find out what the rule is. If you don't know the rule, you check it out, have someone explain the rule, or get it on your cell phone, and you just do the problems. All right? Now, you have to really be fussy, though. You can't just relax and let numbers happen. You have to know 5 into 30 is 6. It has to be, the decimal point has to be in a certain place. You have to really fuss. And when your emotions come in, if you start getting nervous and you start remembering back to when you were little and someone said to you, "How stupid can you be? Why don't you understand that?" Or, "I just explained that. What is the matter with you?" Or, "Oh, you take after your mother," or "You take after your father." You know, don't let that bother you. They're just words. Let them roll right off you. Get into the present moment and say to yourself, whatever happened in the past is just something that I am treating as a memory. What's real is now, and now I'm going to learn this math item. All right? So then, try to think back how I started this in the first episode of the Davincify series. I gave you those Fibonacci numbers, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. And these relate to math, art, architecture, nature. It relates to so much. It's unbelievable. All right? There's the golden ratio. And then I told you about an alphabet of drawing. Dot, circle, arc, line, angle. You can review that for yourself back in the previous episode. All of drawing can be simplified. The idea of drawing like Da Vinci drew, he looked for dot, circle, arc, line, angle. And you can too. Now, drawing requires you to use a certain kind of thinking, and math requires you to turn something off. You have to turn off that relaxed looking and turn on an attention to detail, like with almost using a different tone of voice or a different posture with yourself. And you can turn it back to the way you would think for art. You can turn it back and forth. That's what this is about, to be flexible in your thinking. We weren't meant to be thinking just one way, and that's it. So this is the idea of making your brain flexible so that you can think in math and think in art and do both. So what should you do now? Now that you've seen the whole thing on how to do math and art? Well, I have a website, which you may have used when you got to this episode. It has so many free downloads on it. I have on there ways to make yourself very comfortable in math. I have some things on how to teach this. If you want to teach this kind of thinking to others, which I hope you do. I like this spread worldwide. It can open up people's futures. To get people able to do math, oh man, there's so many things you can do if you have a math background. And to be able to draw, I love teaching this because people learn how to draw within an hour when I do this workshop, especially because of this alphabet of drawing. Remember, I learned that from Mona Brooks. Mona Brooks, she has a book that she uses, Drawing with Children, or Drawing with Older Children and Teens, and she developed the alphabet of drawing. Then there's Betty Edwards. Betty Edwards, who taught how to draw on the right side of the brain. Remember, I'm pretty sure I told you. I taught my math classes from that book. I said, do you see this book? I did tell you about this because I've shown, the book is falling apart. We're going to do the opposite of what this book says, and you'll be able to do math. It's really good to shift your thinking. So take an art class. Get yourself some nice drawing pencils and some nice art paper. Google how to draw. It'll teach you how to put feeling into your drawing, because all I taught you how to do was do the edges. When you take an art class or you Google how to draw, they'll teach you how to fill it in and shade and get emotion into the drawing. You can go far, because you can't unlearn it. Once you learn to give up that control and let the object control your pencil point, you can't unlearn that. All you can do is get better and better by practicing and learning more. Now, there are math topics. You can get yourself a math background. Just keep Googling math topics and click videos. And remember, I told you those nice people will teach you how to do those. Now there's Michael J. Gelb. Michael J. Gelb is the other guy you should Google. Betty Edwards, Mona Brooks, Michael J. Gelb. He's the one that wrote the book, How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, that gave me the idea to do my math and art stuff. Remember, I told him about it, and he's thrilled that I'm doing this. He does it in a more holistic way. Now, we're coming to the end. This is a mysterious object. It makes you think of infinity. The Mobius can be in the shape of an infinity sign. And you know, infinity, if you take a strip of paper, tie it in a knot very carefully, you get a pentagon. A pentagon. Knotting a piece of long strip of ribbon, you get a pentagon. Now, I made a bigger one here, just so that I can take I want to show you what you can do with a pentagon. You can make a star inside a pentagon. Slick, huh? What can you do inside of that star? You can make, you see the pentagon inside, you can make another star. There's a pentagon in the middle of that. You can make another star. There's no pencil fine enough to draw how fine you can think. You can imagine billions of stars in the middle of that, smaller and smaller. That's infinity, a non-stopping sequence of little tiny stars, which means I want you to think about your infinity, your infinite possibilities. Get yourself a math background. Learn how to draw. Use this method. Play these 3 videos. Google stuff. Go to my website. Your infinite possibilities are waiting for you.